Welcome to the Rambam Halacha IYUN Hilchos Shar Avos haTum'ah Perik Vov Halacha Zayin. The Rambam says that if you're negeya in an haTum'ah, in a mikvah, on the floor of the mikvah there's an haTum'ah, a nevela, a sheretz, or a mishkov, and you touch it, you're tameh. You're in a mikveh. Like the famous lashon is, toivel v'sheretz b'yodeh. You're in a mikveh, but you're holding a sheretz. You learn from a pasuk, says the Rambam, ach mayon obeir mikveh mayim yeh tohe. In the same breath, the pasuk says that a mayan and a mikveh make Torah. The pasuk says if you negay you become tameh. That means that even in the mikveh they're metame. Then the Rambam says, "O kishayale min mikveh, he's tohe." He becomes tohe if he goes away from the tumah and he's in the mikveh, and then he sticks out a hand, he's oile from the mikveh, becomes tameh. But if he's sticking out his hand and he's still negay in the tumah, he's not tohe. He left the mikveh. It's a big chiddush. The Kesef Mishnah, all the Rishonim and Achlinim talk about this. The tahara is when he leaves the mikveh. But if he leaves the mikveh, if he sticks his hand out, when he's still touching the tumah, so he didn't leave the mikveh. There's another big chiddush here. That as long as you're in the mikveh, if you didn't leave the mikveh, you're not toher. Toher is when you leave the mikveh. This is a big chiddush. The mishkov also gets toher in the mikveh. So why is the mishkov metame the person? Because the mishkov didn't leave the mikveh, so it's still tameh. So the word is that even if you leave the mikveh, and the mikveh is metayeh you, if you're still negay in the mishkov, you didn't leave the mikveh. Leaving the mikveh is when you're separated from the mishkov, and then you stick your hand out, then you're toher. Leaving the mikveh doesn't mean just leaving the mikveh. Leaving the mikveh is leaving the mikveh and you're toher. If you're standing on the mishkav and you didn't leave the mikveh, a toher. There's a beautiful story I heard from a dear Chaver, Rabbi Miller from Williamsburg. He gives the Shiur and Omid Yoime, the Choshving Light in Satmeh. Told me today a beautiful story. That Rabbi Chaim asked his kids, what's if someone's in a mikveh? While he is toveling, the mikveh has 40 so. While he is toveling, before he leaves the mikveh. Today in this halacha, the Rambam says you become toher when you leave the mikveh. Before you leave the mikveh, someone takes a big pot of water and takes it out. The mikveh is a choser now. When you leave the mikveh, That's the shas hatahara that Rambam says in this halacha. You're leaving a mikveh which is chosher. You traveled in a full mikveh. But you didn't leave a full mikveh. So Rabbi Chaim asked his kids, are you toher? He didn't leave a full mikveh. The kids were thinking, he didn't leave a full mikveh. He didn't leave a full mikveh. And the tahara is when you leave. You're not toher. So Rabbi Chaim said, no, he's toher. Because when you took away the water, you made the mikveh less than 40 saw, that's his aliyah min mikveh. That means the mikveh finished because there's no 40 saw. That's his aliyah. The same thing here. If you're touching the mishkaf and you stick your hand out and your head out, that's not aliyah min mikveh. So it's, even though it's aliyah min mikveh, it has to have certain gedorim. It's more aruchnistic inyan of taking the water out of the mikveh or leaving the mikveh totally toher. And there's arichas of the Rebbe about this inyan, about the tahara happening to a person dafke when he leaves the mikveh. There is a bittul of mikveh, totally chudi law, you're bottled to the Rebbe. But the true tahara happens when you leave the mikveh, you go back into the world. So the Rebbe help him should be metahir us, and we should be zeicha to the ultimate tahara with Mashiach.